My girlfriend publicly humiliated me everywhere for being too cheap and branded me a pathetic boyfriend. So I dumped her publicly. What happens when your girlfriend pushes you so far with public humiliation that you decide to unleash your own calculated, cold-blooded revenge? I never thought I was capable of something so mean. For months, my girlfriend, Tiffany, had been systematically shaming me in public. Everywhere we went, it was a performance. At the mall, she'd announced to salespeople that I was too cheap for her to have nice things. Pointing to some ridiculously expensive designer bag, she'd stand there, practically crying, telling me all her friends' boyfriends bought them weekly jewelry, while I acted like spending money on her was painful. Can you believe that? She'd tell random women in restaurants they were lucky their men valued them enough to pay for expensive meals, while I, her boyfriend, suggested splitting the check. The sheer audacity. It escalated rapidly. For Valentine's Day, I bought her roses from the grocery store. Simple, classic. She left them on the restaurant table, told our waiter I didn't think she was worth real flowers, and then, to get this, she took pictures of those abandoned roses and sent them to her group chat, captioning it, "This is what dating a cheapskate looks like." My blood boiled. She'd compare me to her friends' boyfriends, in front of everyone, listing the expensive gifts they received, then pointing out that I gave her a handmade birthday card. A handmade card, as if that wasn't thoughtful. She actually kept a spreadsheet on her phone, a literal spreadsheet, of all the gifts her friends' boyfriends bought them, and she'd show it to me weekly to demonstrate how far behind I was in the boyfriend rankings. Every week, a reminder of how I wasn't enough. But the final straw? Her sister's engagement party. Tiffany, in front of her entire family, announced that she'd never have a nice ring like that because I believed love shouldn't cost money. She told them I was the reason she couldn't keep up with her social circle, and they all looked at me with pity and disappointment. Real men, she declared, understand that providing means buying whatever their girlfriend wants. No questions, no budgets. When I tried to explain I was actually saving for our future apartment, she cut me off. Excuses for being stingy, she snapped. Future plans don't matter if I'm unhappy now. That was it. That was the moment. Something inside me just snapped. I decided right then and there that Tiffany needed to experience what public shaming about money really felt like. My revenge started small. At dinner with friends, I'd casually mention how Tiffany dropped $300 on face cream while complaining we couldn't afford vacations. I'd tell other diners she insisted on the most expensive wine while contributing absolutely nothing to our bills. At the mall, I'd inform salespeople that yes, Tiffany expected gifts, but hadn't bought me anything in 2 years. Not even a birthday card. When she dragged me shopping, I'd loudly tell other customers in line that she'd maxed out 3 credit cards on clothes she wore once, all while expecting me to cover every single living expense. Then I moved to comparisons just like she did. In front of friends, I'd list how Jake's girlfriend cooked him dinner nightly while Tiffany only ordered takeout on my card. I'd mention how Tom's girlfriend surprised him with thoughtful, homemade gifts, while Tiffany only cared about price tags. I pointed out how Bill's girlfriend worked 2 jobs to contribute equally, while Tiffany quit her part-time job because working was too stressful. Oh, and that spreadsheet she had, I made my own. A spreadsheet showing how much my friends' girlfriends contributed versus took. I showed it to anyone who would look. At her friend's birthday, the crescendo began. I announced that Tiffany couldn't afford a real gift because she'd spent all her money on herself again. I told everyone about the $400 shoes she'd bought herself the day before, while giving her friend a card she'd stolen from my desk drawer. I explained to the whole party that Tiffany believed relationships meant men paying for everything, while women just existed beautifully. Her friends, I noticed, started to look at her differently. They were noticing the pattern. But the real satisfaction, the pure satisfaction, came when I started refusing to pay for anything in the most public way possible. When restaurant bills came, I'd loudly announce I was only paying for my food because Tiffany had shamed me for not buying her a designer purse that morning. I'd tell the confused waiter the entire story, watching Tiffany sink deeper into her seat, mortified. At movie theaters, I'd buy one ticket and tell the cashier my girlfriend thought I was too cheap anyway, so she could buy her own. When she couldn't pay, I'd explain to everyone in line that she'd spent all her money on makeup while expecting me to cover entertainment. Then came the night that broke us. A double date with Jax and Chloe. The bill arrived. I looked at Tiffany and then at our friends, and a cold clarity washed over me. Since Tiffany told everyone at lunch that I was a pathetic provider, I announced, my voice steady, she can provide for herself tonight. I paid for my meal and for Jax and Chloe's meals, but I left Tiffany's portion unpaid. Tiffany froze. Her face went pale, then a fiery red. Jax and Chloe stared at their plates, the silence thick and suffocating. The waiter stood there, utterly confused. I felt a rush, a surge of power, watching her realize I was actually doing this. The manager appeared, asking if there was a problem. Calmly, I explained, my portion and my friend's portions are covered. My girlfriend needs to handle her own meal. The manager nodded slowly, eyebrows raised, looking at Tiffany. Her hands shook as she gripped the edge of the table. Her designer purse sat right next to her chair, an ironic symbol of her materialism. The manager waited. Other diners started to notice. Tiffany finally spoke, her voice a thin, shaky whisper. She didn't have her wallet, she claimed. Liar. I'd seen her purse. The manager, ever polite, suggested an ATM or payment app. Tiffany's eyes, brimming with tears, locked onto mine. Pure rage, pure humiliation. Jax, bless his heart, quietly offered to cover it, just to end the scene. I cut him off. No, Jax. Tiffany needs to learn that actions have consequences. The manager shifted, servers watched. Finally, Tiffany stood, fumbling in her purse before slamming her credit card onto the table. Charge the whole thing to her card, she spat at the manager, then turned to me, true hatred in her eyes. You are a cruel, petty man. This is the last time you humiliate me. She paid, grabbed her coat, and stormed out, the door slamming behind her so hard the windows rattled. Jax and Chloe looked at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. Jax quietly asked, "Did you really need to go that far in front of us?" I started, defensively, listing every single time Tiffany had called me cheap and pathetic. The grocery store roses. The engagement party. Chloe interrupted. "I get that Tiffany was wrong," she said softly, "but what you just did, it felt mean in a different way." She was uncomfortable. We left in awkward silence. Driving home alone, I felt a weird mix. Satisfaction, yes, but also emptiness. Tiffany's face replayed in my mind. My phone blew up with texts from her friends, calling me every name in the book. I turned it off. I poured myself a drink. The apartment felt quiet. The satisfaction was already fading. The next morning, 17 missed calls, 32 texts, most from Tiffany's friends, calling me abusive, some from mutual friends, asking for my side. I texted a simple explanation. Tiffany spent months publicly shaming me. I showed her what that felt like. Some supported me. Others went silent. At work, my friend Vladimir noticed my mood. Over lunch, I told him everything. He listened, then asked a question that blindsided me. Did humiliating Tiffany actually make you feel better, or just make you feel like her? I got defensive, insisting it was different. She started it. I was just giving her a taste of her own medicine. Vladimir just shook his head, took another bite of a sandwich, and said nothing. I knew he thought I was wrong. Tiffany called that afternoon from her friend Dakota's phone, crying, but her voice was hard. "You're a vindictive sociopath. You planned this whole revenge to destroy me publicly. I never want to see you again." I told her that's fine with me. You spent our entire relationship making me feel worthless. We can both move on. She hung up. That evening, Jax showed up with beer. He'd been my friend for 10 years and had never seen me act cold like that. He was worried I'd turned into someone mean. I defended myself, pulling out screenshots of Tiffany's group chat messages, her trashing me, her boyfriend's spreadsheet. Jax scrolled through them all. He admitted she was toxic and materialistic. Then he said, fighting toxicity with more toxicity just made you toxic, too. He asked if I actually felt good, or if I was just telling myself I should because she deserved it. I didn't have a good answer. We sat in silence, drinking beer, while I tried to figure out what I was feeling. The friend group started picking sides. Chloe texted privately, saying she understood my anger, but the restaurant incident felt planned and mean. Not just an angry outburst. I shot back. Tiffany's behavior was planned and mean too. I just wanted her to know what it felt like. She didn't respond. I worried I was losing friends. Then Dakota posted something vague on Facebook about toxic masculinity and financial abuse. It was clearly about me. I wanted to post all my evidence to defend myself. My finger hovered, but Vladimir texted me, warning against a social media war. It just makes everything worse. Fighting online never solves anything. I listened. I saved the screenshots, just in case. A few days later, Willow, Tiffany's sister, called. I almost didn't answer, expecting a lecture, but she said she needed to talk about her engagement party. She admitted Tiffany's announcement about my inability to buy a nice ring made everyone uncomfortable. Then she dropped a bombshell. My revenge campaign crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed. Both Tiffany and I were wrong in different ways. She hoped we could both learn and move on. I understood. I spent the weekend alone, replaying Tiffany's face at the restaurant. The satisfaction was fading, replaced by a weird emptiness. Maybe I had become the thing I hated. I looked at my own spreadsheet, the one comparing her to other girlfriends. It felt small, calculated, petty. She did it first, yes, but that didn't make mine any less childish. I threw my phone on the couch. At work, my mind kept wandering. I wired 2 circuits wrong. My supervisor caught it. He asked if something was going on. I gave him the short version. Public shaming, revenge, restaurant blow-up. He listened, then said, revenge might feel good when you're doing it, but it usually leaves everyone feeling like crap afterward. I learned that the hard way. Tiffany texted me from her own number. Could we meet to divide our stuff? We met at a coffee shop. It was cold, businesslike. We went through a handwritten list of belongings. Like strangers. As we stood to leave, Tiffany stopped me. Why did you have to embarrass me so publicly, instead of just breaking up privately? I told her she embarrassed me publicly for months, and I wanted her to understand. Maybe you'll think twice before treating your next boyfriend like a walking ATM. She looked at me a long, searching look. Then she said, you're right, I was wrong about the public shaming. But what you did, that was planned and cruel in a way my behavior never was. We were both terrible people who brought out the worst in each other. Maybe we should just accept that. I had no words. I just nodded. We walked to our separate cars without saying goodbye. Her admission that she was wrong stunned me. She'd never done that. I wondered if my revenge had stopped her from truly learning, because now she could just focus on my wrongdoings. Vladimir said I was overthinking it. Toxic people rarely change. Don't waste energy. But I couldn't shake the feeling I missed a chance to be the bigger person. Jax and Chloe checked on me. I admitted I regretted the relationship, but I wasn't sure yet if I regretted the revenge. They just looked at each other. Then the realization hit me. All those hours. Lunch, breaks planning. Late nights, building a case. The spreadsheet. The timing of my public attacks for maximum embarrassment. All that mental energy wasted. It could have gone into my electrician certification, hanging out with friends, anything productive. I chose to drag things out, to make both of us miserable, instead of ending it cleanly. I wasted weeks on petty revenge. And now I felt stupid. Small. Anita, a mutual friend, called. She wanted my side of the story. I met her for coffee, armed with screenshots. The group chat messages, the abandoned roses, her boyfriend spreadsheet. Anita scrolled, her eyes wide. I had no idea, she whispered. Tiffany always acted like the victim. She understood why I snapped. Her validation felt good at first, then hollow. Her understanding didn't change the fact that I handled it in the worst possible way. Jax dropped off a box of my stuff from Tiffany's apartment. Seeing my old coffee mug, my hoodie, a framed photo of us from the early, happy days, a wave of sadness. I threw the photo in the trash, then immediately fished it out. Too dramatic, too final. At work, I started to focus again. Vladimir, noticing my newfound calm, told me he was proud I hadn't escalated things on social media. You're handling the aftermath better than the breakup itself. I was just tired, I admitted, ready to move on. Then I ran into Dakota at the grocery store. She called my name. Tiffany's been a mess, she said. Maybe you should reach out. I told her no. That ship had sailed and sunk. Focus on being a good friend to her, not getting us back together. She looked hurt but nodded. That night, I checked Tiffany's Instagram for the first time. Sad quotes about betrayal. Vague but clearly about me. Part of me wanted to reach out. The smarter part knew it would restart the cycle. I closed Instagram. Jax called. Chloe ran into Tiffany. Tiffany asked how I was doing, and she told Chloe she'd been thinking about how materialistic she was, wondering if her behavior pushed me to react. Shocked. She was actually self-reflecting. I told Jax I was doing the same. Maybe we were both growing. That conversation pushed me. I wrote Tiffany a letter, draft after draft. Too angry, too apologetic, too cold. Eventually, I realized there was no perfect way. I sent a simple text. I apologized for the cruelty of my methods, while standing by my right to defend myself against her public shaming. Tiffany responded a few hours later with her own apology. She was sorry for the shaming, the comparisons, admitted she was insecure and materialistic. We brought out the worst in each other, she wrote. We should both be glad it ended. We texted back and forth for 20 minutes, the most honest conversation we'd had in months. It didn't fix anything, but it felt like real closure, like I could finally close that chapter. Vladimir asked me what I learned. Being right about her behavior doesn't mean my response was okay, I said. She was wrong, but I was wrong too. Two wrongs don't make a right. They just make both people look bad and drag innocent people into the mess. Vladimir nodded. That's the hard part about breakups, recognizing your own mistakes even when the other person started it. I started thinking about my next relationship. What kind of boyfriend do I want to be? What warning signs do I need to watch for? The public shaming should have been an immediate deal breaker. Instead, I stayed hoping she'd change. The resentment built until I snapped. Next time, I'd have the guts to end things at the first sign of disrespect. 2 weeks later, I ran into Tiffany at a friend's birthday. We froze. Then she gave me a small nod. We stayed on opposite sides of the room. Later at the bar, we made eye contact. Hi, she said, quiet. I said hi back. We had 3 minutes of polite small talk. Nothing deep. Just two people acknowledging each other without drama. It felt like progress. Jax drove me home. He was relieved. People in our friend group had been walking on eggshells. I felt awful. I never thought about how our toxic relationship affected everyone else. He said he stuck by me, even when he thought I was being an idiot. One night, sitting alone, it clicked. The revenge wasn't about teaching her a lesson. It was about making myself feel powerful after months of feeling small and worthless. Every time she called me cheap, I felt like I wasn't good enough. Humiliating her was my way of proving I had control. Understanding that didn't excuse it, but it showed me patterns I needed to work on. I started saving for that apartment again. Without the drama, it was easy. My savings grew. I wasn't cheap, I was responsible. She just couldn't see past her need for expensive gifts. I should have found a partner who appreciated my financial goals. Every time I checked my bank account, I felt vindicated in a way the revenge never had. 3 months later, I ran into Tiffany's sister, Willow, and her fiancé, Kirk, at a restaurant. Willow mentioned she'd heard Tiffany and I had our closure conversation. She was glad. She said Tiffany seemed much happier now. I told them I was doing well, seeing someone new. Kirk asked if I'd be comfortable coming to their wedding, since Tiffany would be there. I said I would. The fact that I could sit and have drinks with Tiffany's sister and fiancé without awkwardness felt like a true sign of moving on. Vladimir caught me at work. He was proud of how I'd handled the aftermath. You turned a toxic situation into an opportunity for growth instead of just staying bitter and angry. I thanked him for calling me out. He asked about Gracie, a friend of Chloe's I'd started dating. Things were going really well. Vladimir said he could tell I was in a better headspace. 6 months after the breakup, I barely recognized the person I'd been. My savings account grew. I wasn't spending money on proving points or planning revenge. Gracie texted, asking what time I'd pick her up for dinner. Dating her was easy. No fighting. No drama. No spreadsheets. She never made me feel bad about my job or income. The whole Tiffany situation felt like a movie I watched about someone else. The burning need for revenge? I couldn't even remember what that felt like anymore. Life was good. Simple. Drama-free. The wedding invitation came. I almost didn't go, but Gracie convinced me. I spotted Tiffany across the church, lighter, less angry. After the ceremony, I went to congratulate the bride, and Tiffany was there with a guy I didn't recognize. Julius. She smiled, a genuine smile. We made small talk. She asked about my apartment. I asked about her new job. Totally normal. She seemed happy with Julius. He seemed kind. I was happy for them. Happy for us. At the reception, Gracie and I danced. I watched Tiffany with Julius. She was laughing, spinning. He kissed her forehead. She looked genuinely happy, relaxed, not tense, not trying to impress. I hoped she'd learned from our mistakes, wasn't putting pressure on him. I hoped he was secure enough to set boundaries. Mostly, I just hoped they were both happy, treating each other with respect. Driving home, Gracie asked about Tiffany. I took a deep breath. I told her everything. The public shaming. My calculated revenge. The restaurant incident. The satisfaction. Gracie listened without judging. When I finished, she said, "I can see how much you've grown since then." She said the guy who planned revenge campaigns didn't sound like the guy sitting next to her now. I promised her no more revenge. No public humiliation. Just honest talking. And the guts to walk away if things got toxic. She said she was committed to the same. I was grateful she didn't run away after hearing my worst moments. That night, I kept thinking about what I'd tell my past self. End things the first time she shamed you. Revenge feels good in the moment, but leaves you empty. Humiliating someone doesn't heal your hurt. The right person won't make you feel small. It's better to be alone and work on yourself than to be stuck in a relationship that brings out your worst. Walk away with dignity. But I couldn't go back. I just had to learn. Jax came over watching the game. He muted the TV. "You've changed so much in 6 months. That guy who left Tiffany's bill unpaid, he seemed angry and mean. Now you seem calm and happy." I told him I learned to recognize resentment and address it directly, not let it build. He said he was glad, but wished I'd figured it out without the drama. I agreed. He asked about Gracie. Things were great. We communicated honestly. He could tell I was in a better place. My realtor called. Offer accepted on the apartment. I yelled with excitement. Vladimir high-fived me. It represented everything I'd worked for. All the saving, even through the chaos. Closing on the place felt like proof I'd stayed focused on my real goals. Gracie came with me to the closing. We walked through the empty rooms, planning. She mentioned moving in eventually. Casual. Honest. We had a housewarming party. Jax, Chloe, Vladimir. Laughing. Chloe mentioned how nice it was to hang out without walking on eggshells. Vladimir raised his beer. To new beginnings and leaving toxic situations in the past. I felt a wave of gratitude for my friends. Gracie started staying over more. It was simple. No drama. No scorekeeping. We talked about long-term plans. Kids someday. I could actually picture that future with her. Something I never felt with Tiffany. I ran into Tiffany at the grocery store. We both stopped. Smiled. No awkwardness. She asked about the apartment. I asked about her job. She was happy with Julius. I was happy too. She was glad we both found better matches. People who brought out the good in us. We agreed and went our separate ways. The revenge campaign was a mistake I'd always regret, but it was part of a messy journey that taught me what I actually needed in a partner. We both grew. Sometimes that's the best possible ending. I learned that being right doesn't give you permission to be mean, and proving a point isn't worth destroying your own character. Gracie helped me see that relationships should make you want to be better, not bring out your worst. My life now is completely different. My apartment, Gracie, my friends, my career, all solid. The best way to deal with a bad relationship isn't to destroy the other person publicly. It's to just walk away and build a better life. So, here's my question for you. Have you ever been pushed to a breaking point like this in a relationship? And if so, what did you do? What would you have done in my place? I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below.